Diane Lane. You won't believe the confession that came out when the lights went low and the interviewer smiled, and no, it wasn't the kind of Hollywood gossip you expect. It was one actress older, sharp, and wickedly honest, talking about the few men who made her lose her lines, lose her composure, and quietly admit that sometimes fantasy almost felt real. Pull up a chair. This is the story of chemistry, restraint, and how being professional sometimes means almost giving in. Diane Lane. She starts with a laugh, that slow, knowing laugh that says she's enjoying the memory as much as the telling. At 60, she says, honesty about attraction can be risky, but the way she tells it, you can feel every beat of those scenes she's describing. Working opposite some men didn't just make scenes better, it made her forget she was acting. With one look, one calm presence, the whole set tightened into a single charged moment. She says there's a line between fantasy and action, and most times the smarter move was to stop just before crossing it. But there were 6 men who blurred that line, the kind of people who pull you in without meaning to. Richard Gere. Richard, she says, is all grace. Not flashy, not loud, just an elegant steadiness that's disarming. Imagine someone who doesn't try to be magnetic, and yet everything about him draws you in. During rehearsals for a certain film, she remembers losing her place on the page, not because he stared or flirted, but because his presence made you feel truly seen. That stillness, that focus, it sneaks up on you. Acting beside him felt like standing next to a warm fire. You don't mean to get close, but you feel the pull. She behaved, she insists, but admits how thin the barrier between performance and feeling can become. Kevin Costner. Kevin, she laughs, could make standing still look like an act of heroism. There's a quiet gravity about him, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that creates space for you to be vulnerable. She remembers him listening in a way that shifted how she said her next line. Imagine doing emotionally intense scenes and feeling safe. That's what he gave. He doesn't push, he absorbs, and that stillness can be as seductive as any sultry line. She says he taught her something about power. Sometimes strength is quiet, and that quiet lets the rest of the room breathe. Josh Brolin. With Josh, it's all energy and a little bit of controlled chaos. He brings a raw, unpredictable force that makes every take feel alive. Think of someone who'll throw a new beat into a scene, and suddenly the whole rhythm changes. You either keep up, or you get swept away. There's a wild streak, yes, but it's balanced by tenderness. A thunderous take followed by a joke to make sure you're okay. That combination of danger and kindness is magnetic. She says, working with him was like dancing on a floor that might tilt, thrilling, and a little dangerous in the best way. Matt Dillon. Matt takes her back to their youth, the awkward excitement of 2 people trying to act mature while both are secretly impressed. He had that quiet cool that made silence feel like an entire scene. She remembers being mid-breath, mid-thought, and realizing he was already telling a story just by looking at her. That kind of subtlety is dangerous, because you don't notice it until you've already forgotten your line. Over the years, that smolder became steadier, more refined, and the same spark, just deeper. For her, he'll always be tied to the memory of beginnings and the nervous thrill of something new. Tom Cruise. Tom, she says, is pure momentum. Even before he became the star everyone knew, he had a comet-like energy, fast, determined, and impossible to ignore. He moves on set like he's already inside the next scene, planning the next stunt and the next beat. That intensity is contagious. You leave a day's shoot a little more alive than when you started. He's boyish in a precise way, a kind of focused charm that makes you feel like the rest of the world fades for a moment. When he connects in a scene, you don't act, you respond. That's the hallmark of chemistry, 2 people meeting in the truth of the moment, not the script. Christopher Lambert. Christopher brought a European mystery quiet on the surface, alive underneath. His focus made even the quietest moments feel like secrets shared between takes. She remembers long nights of complex dialogue, where his listening changed the meaning of what she was about to say. There's something about an accent, she jokes, that does half the work. But it's more than that. It's precision. Every look, every pause had purpose, and acting with him felt like a chess match. Strategic, careful, and utterly engaging. What she remembers most is his generosity, a desire to make the scene breathe, not to dominate it. So what's the through line here? It isn't scandal or tabloid thrills, it's that chemistry isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet gravity that makes you drop your guard. Sometimes it's pure, frantic energy that pulls you into the moment. And sometimes it's a soft precision that turns silence into storytelling. What these men had in common, she says, was the ability to make a scene feel so real that acting and living brushed up against each other. That's the dangerous, irresistible thing about working with people who are truly present. She never crossed the line, she says. Mostly because she valued the mystery, the thrill of keeping that fire alive off camera too. The fantasy, she argues, lasts longer when you keep it unconsummated. But she'll always remember the times those actors made her forget her lines, forget her cool, and remind her why she fell in love with the job in the first place. So, here's the takeaway. Chemistry happens when presence meets trust. It doesn't need fireworks to be unforgettable. Sometimes, a look, a pause, or the steadiness of someone who listens is enough to change everything. And when you're watching a scene that feels true, know that 1,000 tiny professional choices and the risk of almost losing control are what made it sing. So, here's the takeaway. Chemistry happens when presence meets trust. It doesn't need fireworks to be unforgettable. Sometimes, a look, a pause, or the steadiness of someone who listens is enough to change everything. And when you're watching a scene that feels true, know that 1,000 tiny professional choices and the risk of almost losing control are what made it sing. If you liked this, hit like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories and honest takes from people who lived the moment. What chemistry moment stuck with you in a movie or show? Drop it below. I want to hear which scene made you forget it was acting.